Have you ever said something to your adult child that felt completely harmless, maybe even loving, but then, all of a sudden, they started acting distant? The phone calls got shorter. The visits became less frequent. And you were left wondering, what did I do wrong? You didn't yell. You didn't insult them. You just said something. Something that maybe your own parents used to say to you. And yet, something about it hit them differently. See, here's the thing, as we get older, the words we use matter more than ever. Not because we mean harm, but because the people we love the most, especially our grown children, are carrying their own baggage. Their own memories. Their own wounds. And sometimes, one small phrase, just a few words spoken out of habit or frustration, can be enough to reopen those old wounds. It doesn't mean you're a bad parent. It doesn't mean you've failed. But it does mean there's room to grow and reconnect. In this video, we're going to talk about 5 toxic phrases that you should never say to your adult children. They may sound familiar. They may even sound like things you've said with love, or out of concern. But trust me, some of these phrases, especially number 4, have caused lifelong rifts between parents and their kids. That's why this matters. Because your relationships in your golden years? They should be filled with warmth. With laughter. With closeness, not confusion or silence. So, grab a cup of tea, get comfortable, and let's have a real, honest talk. And hey, if you're here because you want to grow, because you care deeply about staying close with your kids and grandkids, comment below, just say, I want to grow. Let's learn together. And don't forget to subscribe to Elderly Wisdom Guide, your safe space for thoughtful conversations on aging with love, dignity, and wisdom. Let's dive in. Let's start with the first phrase. One that slips out so easily, especially when emotions are high. After everything I've done for you, now, maybe you've said it. Maybe you've only thought it. And truthfully, it comes from a very human place, because you have done a lot. You've sacrificed. You've worked hard. You've stayed up late, worried sick. You've poured your energy, your love, and sometimes your very last dime into raising them. So, when your adult child does something that feels cold, dismissive, or selfish, it stings. It really stings. I remember a woman, I'll call her Margaret. She was in her 70s, sharp-witted and full of stories. But one day, in a heated phone call with her son, she said those words. After everything I've done for you, just like that. And 2 months went by without a single word from him. No calls. No visits. Not even a birthday card. What Margaret didn't realize is, while she was reaching out from a place of hurt, her son heard something completely different. He didn't hear love. He heard, "You owe me. You'll never measure up. You're a disappointment." You see, to an adult child, especially one who's trying to find their own footing in life, this phrase can feel like emotional blackmail. Even when it's not meant that way. Even when your heart is in the right place. And here's the hard truth, gratitude isn't something we can demand. It's not something we're owed. Gratitude that's forced becomes resentment. Now, I know what you might be thinking. I just want them to appreciate me. To recognize how much I've given. And that's valid. You do deserve to be appreciated. But appreciation grows when the relationship feels safe, not when it feels transactional. So, what can you say instead? Something like, I've always tried to support you, and I hope we can understand each other better now. That tells your child, I love you. I want connection. And I'm open to hearing your side too. It shifts the tone from guilt to grace. From blame to bridge building. Because here's the deeper truth, we don't parent to get something back. We parent because we love. And that love doesn't stop, even when it's challenged. But guilt isn't the only toxin that can slip into our words without warning. Let's move to the next phrase. One that might sound sweet on the surface, but can quietly begin to suffocate the relationship you're trying so hard to protect and quietly push your child away. You never call me anymore. It's the kind of sentence that slips out when you're feeling forgotten. When days stretch on with no ring of the phone, and the house feels just a little too quiet. But let me tell you a story. There was a grandfather, let's call him Bill. Every week, when his daughter finally called, he'd answer the phone with the same words, "Well, look who finally remembered their old man." Or worse. "You never call me anymore." He thought he was being playful. He thought he was showing that he missed her. But week after week, those words chipped away at something sacred. Until one day, she just stopped calling. Not out of anger, but out of exhaustion. You see, what Bill didn't realize, and what many parents don't, is that phrases like that don't feel like love. They feel like blame. To the adult child on the other end of the line, it doesn't feel like an invitation. It feels like a reminder that they're failing you. That no matter what they do, it's never enough. And here's the truth, most adult children are not avoiding you on purpose. They're overwhelmed. They're balancing work, marriage, bills, parenting. They're trying to survive, sometimes just barely. When a call becomes a guilt trip, it stops feeling like connection. And starts to feel like a chore. That's the mistake many older parents make, not because they're unkind, but because they're lonely. And I get it. Loneliness in our later years can feel sharp, heavy, and unspoken. It aches. It lingers. But using guilt to express that loneliness can build walls where we need bridges. So how can you turn that moment into something beautiful? Try saying this instead: "I really enjoy hearing from you, it brightens my week." Simple. Warm. No blame. No pressure. Just a reminder that your door, and your heart, are open. And here's what's amazing, when your child hears that kind of love. It doesn't guilt them into calling. It inspires them to. Because you've made the call feel like a gift, not an obligation. And that, my friend, changes everything. Now, speaking of guilt. There's another phrase, one that doesn't just touch the surface. It cuts deeper. Because it doesn't question their actions. It questions their identity. Phrase number 3. That's not how we did things in my day. It shows up at family dinners, birthday parties, casual visits, and always leaves behind just a little bit of tension. Let me take you to a holiday gathering I once heard about. A big, joyful family dinner. The kind where the kitchen smells like cinnamon and roasted turkey. Everyone's talking over each other, kids are running around with sticky fingers, and laughter fills the room, until it doesn't. A young dad, probably in his 30s, is trying to calm his toddler without raising his voice. He's patient. Calm. Explaining feelings. And then, from across the table, his father, the grandfather, shakes his head and says with a chuckle, "That's not how we did things in my day." A quick smack used to fix that real fast. The laughter stops. The room goes still for just a moment. And though dessert is still to come, the warmth in that room? Gone. See, the grandfather wasn't trying to hurt anyone. He was sharing a memory. A belief. Maybe even pride in how he raised his own children. But to his son, who's now trying to do things differently, it felt like judgment. It felt like disapproval. That phrase, "That's not how we did things in my day," might seem harmless. Nostalgic, even. But what it really does is diminish the present. It draws a line in the sand between then and now. Between your way, and their way. And it sends a message: what you're doing isn't good enough. The mistake here is subtle, but common. We say it with fondness. With memory. with a sense of pride. But they hear it as a dismissal of everything they're trying to become. Because every generation learns new things. We know more about child development now. Mental health. Emotional resilience. And whether or not we agree with all of it, it matters to them. So, what do you say instead? Try this. It's interesting how things have changed. I'd love to hear why you do it that way. Just like that, you turn a moment of judgment into a moment of curiosity. Instead of putting up a wall, you open a door. You're saying, I see you. I respect your choices. Teach me. And when you show that kind of openness, especially as an elder, it brings you closer. It invites your children to trust you. To come to you, not pull away from you. Because at the end of the day, they don't need you to agree with everything they do. They just need to feel safe being themselves around you. Now, this next phrase. It's the most dangerous one of all. Not because it's loud, but because it's quiet. It sounds innocent. Subtle. But it can slowly eat away at trust until there's nothing left. It's the most heartbreaking of all. And sadly, it's the one that can do the most damage, often without you even realizing it. Let's talk about it. I guess I'll just be alone then. It sounds small, right? Soft. Quiet. But when those words come from you, from a parent, a grandparent, someone they deeply care about, it can feel like a dagger. I want to tell you about a woman named Helen. She was a widowed mother in her early 80s. Her daughter lived an hour away, married, 2 young kids, a full-time job. And every time Helen's daughter had to cancel plans or reschedule a visit, Helen would say, well, I guess I'll just be alone then. Not in anger. Not in a dramatic voice. Just a soft sigh, a quiet sentence. But over time, that sentence became heavier and heavier. Her daughter started dreading the phone calls. She felt like nothing she did was enough. If she came, it was expected. If she didn't, she was the bad guy. Eventually, she just stopped visiting altogether. Now here's the thing. Helen wasn't trying to manipulate her daughter. She was lonely. She missed her family. She missed the laughter in the house, the noise, the company. But instead of saying that plainly, she said something that sounded like punishment. And that's where this phrase becomes dangerous. Because it doesn't come across as vulnerability. It comes across as guilt. And guilt, over time, turns into resentment. I guess I'll just be alone then. What your child hears is, you don't care about me. You're failing me. You're choosing your life over me, and that makes you selfish. Even if that's not what you meant. Even if your heart was just aching to feel loved and remembered. See, this is where so many elders unintentionally break the bond with their adult children. Not with shouting. Not with blame. But with sorrow that sounds like emotional manipulation. And once that feeling sets in, once your child starts associating time with you as a source of guilt and not joy, the visits become fewer. The calls shorter. The relationship, distant. So, what can you say instead? Try this. I miss you when you're not around. It means a lot when we spend time together. That's not guilt. That's honesty. That's opening your heart without expecting them to fill the void. It's telling them, your presence brings me happiness, but I'm not going to hold it against you when life gets busy. That one shift, from punishment to vulnerability. It keeps the door open. It keeps the love alive. Because what your children need most, is not a reminder of how they're falling short. But a reminder that you love them, even when they can't be there. Now, there's one more phrase. And it's one that often slips out in the heat of the moment, but its echo can last for years, even decades. Let's take a deep breath, and go there next. And now we've arrived at the 5th and final phrase. One that may seem like a throwaway line in the heat of an argument, but can leave a scar that never truly fades. You're just like your father. Or, you're just like your mother. Now, let's slow down for a moment. Because this one, it can cut deep, deeper than most people realize. I remember hearing about a mother in her 80s. She had an adult son, mid-40s, successful, stable, and yet, quietly battling old wounds. His father had been harsh, cold, critical. They didn't talk much. And when they did, it was mostly tension, never tenderness. One day, during a disagreement over something small, a missed phone call, I think, his mother snapped and said, "You're just like your father." Now, she didn't scream it. She didn't throw anything or make a scene. It was a simple sentence. But in that moment, it crushed him. Because all the pain he carried, all the parts of himself he worked so hard to overcome, all the distance he put between his life and the pain of his childhood, it all came crashing back. He walked out of that house. And he never came back. Now you might ask, how could one sentence cause all that? But here's what we often forget, your adult children aren't just grown-ups. They're still, deep down, carrying memories from when they were small. When words hurt more than fists. When a look of disappointment could break their heart. So, when you compare them to someone they may have had a hard relationship with, a parent who was emotionally absent, or harsh, or even abusive, it feels like betrayal. And often, when elders use this phrase, it's not out of cruelty. It's out of frustration. You're trying to make a point. You're trying to say, this behavior reminds me of something that worried me. But what your child hears is, you're flawed. You're doomed to repeat the past. You're not good enough. Even worse, it feels like you've just picked a side, and it's not theirs. That's why this phrase is so toxic. It personalizes the issue. It takes the focus off the moment, the conversation, the disagreement, and it turns it into a character attack. So, what should you say instead? Something like this: "I'm noticing some patterns that worry me, can we talk about it?" It's respectful. It invites a conversation, not a confrontation. It doesn't label. It doesn't shame. It simply says, I care enough to be honest. And I care enough to speak with love, not judgment. And that's the key. Because in these later years of life, the goal is no longer to win arguments. It's not to prove a point. It's to preserve connection. To keep the bridge between you and your children strong enough to carry the weight of your stories, your emotions, and your shared history. These 5 phrases we've covered, they aren't just sentences. They're patterns. Habits. Ways of expressing pain that, if left unchecked, push away the very people we want to keep close. But the good news? You can shift that. With intention. With kindness. With just a few better words. And now that we've explored each one, let's take a breath. Because this next part is where we bring it all together. Talk about how to move forward, with wisdom, warmth, and hope. It's painful, isn't it? To look back and realize that something you said, something that maybe came from love, or frustration, or habit, might have actually pushed your child away instead of pulling them closer. And that realization? It can feel like a knot in the chest. Because no parent wants to hurt their child. Not at 30. Not at 50. Not at 70 or 80. But here's what I want you to hold on to. That moment of awareness you're having right now, that's power. That's wisdom. The kind of wisdom that doesn't just come from years, but from reflection. From courage. You see, recognizing the impact of your words isn't weakness. It's strength. It means you care. It means you're still growing. And that's something to be proud of. Because too many people reach these later years thinking, well, I am who I am. But not you. You're here. You're listening. You're choosing to understand your children, even when it's hard. And that's the beauty of this moment. It's not about fearing every word you say. It's about becoming more intentional. More loving. More open. So instead of thinking, I can't say anything without them getting upset, you can now think, I know how to speak in a way that brings us closer. That's not silence. That's wisdom with volume. So tonight, just tonight, I want you to think about the last real conversation you had with your adult child. Not the small talk. Not the weather or the groceries. But the real one. Is there something you said that you wish you could take back? Or maybe there's something you meant to say, but didn't know how. What would it look like to revisit that moment with kindness instead of guilt? To say, I've been thinking about our last talk, and I want to show up better next time. Because here's the truth no one says enough, it's never too late to try again. Bridges, no matter how worn down, can be rebuilt. And your child, no matter how distant, still holds a space in their heart with your name on it. Love is not about getting everything right. It's not about perfect words, or perfect timing. It's about effort. It's about choosing, over and over again, to keep reaching out. To keep showing up with a little more softness. A little more understanding. And a little more grace. You've lived through so much. You've learned more than most people will ever understand. And now, with just a few thoughtful shifts, you can turn that wisdom into healing. Not just for your child, but for yourself, too. Because peace doesn't only live in our homes. It lives in our hearts. And the way we speak is often the doorway. So, breathe. You're not too late. You're right on time. And you're not alone. Let's take the next step, together. Let's take a quiet moment. And gently go back over the 5 phrases we uncovered today. Not to dwell in guilt. But to rise in awareness. 1. After everything I've done for you, a phrase that often comes from a wounded place, meant to remind, but heard as a guilt trip. 2. You never call me anymore. A cry for connection that ends up sounding like a burden. 3. That's not how we did things in my day. An innocent-sounding memory that can make your child feel small, judged, or unseen. 4. I guess I'll just be alone then. The most dangerous of them all, because it doesn't just express sadness, it manipulates with it. And finally, 5. You're just like your father/mother. A statement that might seem like a comparison, but can cut deeper than you ever intended. If you've ever used any of these, take a breath. There's no shame here. We don't grow by beating ourselves up. We grow by seeing clearly, and choosing differently. And now that you see them, now that you know better, you have the gift of choice. You can choose new words. Gentler words. Words that open doors instead of closing them. Now I'd love to hear from you. Which of these phrases hit you the hardest? Was there one you didn't even realize could be so damaging? Or maybe you've heard, or said, something that should have been on this list. Let's talk about it in the comments below. Because healing starts with honesty. And your story might help someone else find their own clarity, too. If this video made you think, if it gave you something valuable to take into your next conversation, I gently invite you to subscribe to Elderly Wisdom Guide. Every day, we're here for you, with heartfelt conversations about aging, connection, health, and the wisdom that comes with every wrinkle and every lesson learned. We're not just building knowledge here. We're building a community of people who want to live these years with grace. And love better, speak softer, and connect deeper. So, thank you. Thank you for showing up today. For listening. For reflecting. For growing. Stay compassionate with yourself. stay curious about your relationships. And above all, stay open. I'll see you in the next video, right here, on Elderly Wisdom Guide.